Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Steve, I'm so glad we're here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So what I like to do with my guests is I just like them to introduce themselves and start in your story where you want to go, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Sue. Thanks so much for having me. It's really cool to sit down and have this conversation at the end of the day. I'm Steve, now MOBY Leitch, we'll get to the MOBY part soon enough, but from Edinburgh, Scotland originally. Ended up in South Carolina at Clemson in 1991. Lived in Scotland until I was 17. My parents still lived over there, and my mom still lives there to this day. But I've lived in South Carolina basically since 1998 and left for a little while, 2010, 2018, but really call South Carolina my home now. Into real estate, into coaching, into ultra marathon swimming, big on sobriety, have a massive family. My bride, we're married. We have a blended family of 6 kids and a granddaughter. And we have a lot on our plates. It's really cool. That's just like a brief overview kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you have an amazing background story. Also, you've got a lot of experience behind you. And there's 2 things I want us to touch on today. Definitely your faith. And the other is your most recent accomplishment, and that's swimming the Kaiwi. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Kaiwi Channel, yeah.
Kaiwi Channel, the 26 miles, in Hawaii. So, you want to pick up from there?
Yeah. So faith was an interesting thing. My dad was an evangelist from Scotland. Came to Chicago and Moody Bible Institute in Chicago in 1966. They flew over a twin prop plane, landed on Greenland, refueled, and then went back over. And they didn't have phone lines at that point. It was all wires and telegrams back and forth. Eventually, they ran a line underneath the Atlantic to make a phone call, which you had to book 2 weeks in advance with the switchboard. But I tell you that because now we FaceTime and instant message and all this stuff. It's just crazy. But so Dad was an evangelist, grew up in the Christian circles with Billy Graham and all those, and Lee Plow and big names. And but just kind of like felt like an outsider looking in. Didn't really know what faith was to me. I, at a young age, was swimming and on the national team over in Scotland, but didn't really fit in there either because I was over in America a lot growing up. I was over here summers and Christmases, and then I would be at school over there. So it was like over here, I was the visitor, and back at home, everyone was like, "Oh, you're a Yank because you're going over to America all the time." So it's kind of like this, almost like a third culture kid, very, very strange. Didn't really feel like I fit in. Also, I was really, really, really hyper. Just high drive. Didn't really, wasn't good on small talk conversations, things like that. But loved just doing things, whether anything to do with water skiing, surfing, swimming, splashing. Anything to do with water, I want to be in water. And I quit swimming after Clemson, did a culinary degree, became a chef for many years, trained with a master chef in Scotland. But then 2010, I'd opened up a restaurant, bankrupted, burned out my drug and alcohol addictions that had been managing. I was a functioning addict for years, really a decade. Really kind of lifestyle thing inside of the hospitality industry just caught up with me. And I hit rock bottom in 2010, found myself underneath a tree in a rest area. Actually, I just passed that tree in that rest area on the way to Louisville last week. And every time I pass it, going up the highway, I Sometimes I stop, sometimes I don't, but I just kind of sat there and went, okay, God, I'm done. I've done everything I can possibly do in life, and I am now sitting here. I don't know when I'm going to see my children again. I've got $55 in my pocket, no insurance in my car, no plate, no dead tags on the car, completely bankrupted, life wasted, and just done, and that's really where my faith journey started. I'd love to say, yeah, it got really easy at that point. It didn't. It got harder. But by the grace of God, by nothing I did, never went to rehab or anything like that. Quit drugs, quit drinking. I started working on really my faith walk, my spiritual development, who I am, who God created me to be, kind of what looking like a godly man looks like outside of like just showing up for church. Like, who is he? Who is God? Who am I? So I worked on that spiritual, then I started working on physical, just trying to get healthy again. After years of, just punishing my body, I wanted to be healthy, and so worked on that. What does it mean to eat well, work out again? And I'd love to tell you that 10 years ago I started, 12 years ago, I started swimming again. I did some swims here and there while I was up in Michigan just by myself, but tried to get back in the swimming pool, and I was like, no, wait, can't do it. And so that never really took off, but got into like weightlifting and things like that, and just overall being healthy. Then I started working on spiritual, physical, relational development. What does it look like to be, if I'm going to be a husband ever again, what does that look like? If I'm going to be a father to my kids, like, and keep pursuing them, what does that look like? If I'm going to be a friend, what does that look like? If I'm going to be in business with someone, what does that look like? And really started like examining my faith and my spiritual and physical development and my relational development, all as this group of things, these three pillars, and then was kind of like working on my financial after that. And then fast forward, I, was finished up the restaurant industry in 2018 on a high note. Worked for just an incredible operator up in Michigan. He ran 2 hotels. I ran the food and beverage for him, and really finished on a high note. I was so happy with that. But after 19 years, I was like, someone said, if you stay in till 20, you're never getting out. And I was like, I'm done.
Want to
Like, I
get out?
don't want to work weekends anymore. I don't want to work nights anymore.
Yeah,
All
Steve,
doctor weddings was to work them. I was just
I
like,
have to. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you your story. I'm just sitting here like ready to explode because I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've interviewed people who have gotten sober and they've gone through programs. I've had a friend on; he was a cocaine addict and a functioning alcoholic for 20 years, and
yeah,
they go through programs. And what I find most fascinating, I find a couple things fascinating about your story, but one is that you did it yourself. That
yeah,
you didn't go to a triple. I'm sorry, I was going to say triple A. You didn't go to an AA program or anything. You did it
yeah.
yourself, and then captured just that little bit of time where you started to take those small steps. Do you remember what were your first small steps that you did take that started your path to sobriety and no longer having drug addiction? And just capture those first couple, maybe year or two. You said you were bankrupt, you had $55 in your pocket. I know, there's probably somebody listening who knows is either in that spot or knows somebody in that spot.
Yeah.
What words of encouragement could you give to them on how you started your trajectory upward at that point?
Yeah, well, it started upward. I looked upward. Like, okay, God, I'm done. I'm going to trust you. I also, um, at first, I started, just like landscaping and doing stuff like that, just to be outdoors, just to keep work, to be busy. And that busyness kind of like just kept my brain from like just sitting in a pit. I needed to be moving. To this day, I need to be moving. I don't sit very well. Um, But I think it was having community around me too. I had an incredible community up in Michigan at Bethany Beach. People who really who showed me grace and cared for me, um,
Mm.
but were like, he, you know, he's trusting, he's working, he's moving, these things. Yeah, the
They s-
alcohol actually, the year after I quit drugs, was became an issue. And I never really liked alcohol that much. I thought it was really boring. I just did it as like part of the industry. And alcohol became this like thing. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even like this, but it was just I wanted to numb myself so much. So that's really where the step of just being able to sit by myself. So
Mm.
I found a gentleman, or he found me, however you want, that we could just sit there and we could sit in silence and just every now and again say something to each other. But it was more about just being with your own thoughts and praying. And I think I knew that once I knew that I was okay being with me and that I could just deal with my problems, then I can go out and deal with other problems. Because I
Yeah.
am my biggest problem.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
think a lot of yeah,
yeah,
I
our
hear
biggest
that. That's
problem
been
is
a
like,
common theme. Yeah, is us first. You have to take care of yourself. You have to start with you first, and it's so counterintuitive to what we hear out in even in the church. I mean, I've been part of the church for over 25 years as well. So, you grow up in that service to everybody else, serve others, serve others, serve others. And I'm not saying not serve others, but sometimes we serve others to the exclusion of caring for ourselves. And what we tend to forget is that if we don't take care of our inner body first, we don't take care of that inside first, we're not going to have that strength and we're not going to have that ability to care for others when we're called to do that. So that's where the silence comes in at. I had a friend of mine, I learned about the power of silence, just sitting in silence for 10 minutes. Honestly, that was a foreign concept to me about until about 2 months ago when somebody challenged me and they said, "Why don't you just sit quietly in the morning and at night for 10 minutes and breathe?"
right, right,
And what a difference
right.
already for me personally, just to be alone and be comfortable with myself. So I can relate to what you're saying and say, yes, 100% what you're talking about, getting comfortable with who you are. And that's a small step anybody can take right now. Just listening. If you're not sure who you are, take that first step just to start exploring inside. And
Yeah,
that's a really good in way because I was looking at your Facebook. You have some amazing Facebook posts that are encouraging, inspirational, and uplifting. And you have one post where you talked about not fitting in is really a blessing in disguise. Would you talk some more about what you meant by that and unpack your thoughts on somebody's unique abilities and kind of what prompted you to make that post?
yeah. So I really had an insecurity problem growing up, and it was because I was bullied. I was treated differently. I didn't really fit in, and I didn't really know where I fit in. So I tried to fit in wherever I could. I was the pleaser. I was the complimenter. I was the schmoozer, if you will. I didn't mean like I didn't even know what I was doing. It was just this absolute desire to be connected just for the sake of connection. Um, so once I got really comfortable with me and who God says I am, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm really scared that I actually might fit in. Because, we going back to what you're saying, like serving others is what I often see is like people are trying to solve everybody else's problems,
Mhm.
but it's to distract them from actually taking care of the problems they have inside themselves. It's to actually make feel themselves feel better. So it's like posturing. You're like, hey, man, I really helped all these people out today. Da, da, da. Meanwhile, in the background, like, okay, their money game might be good, but their health is falling apart, their marriage is falling
Mhm.
apart, their relationship with their kids is falling apart. Like all these other things. But hey, man, we helped a ton of people today.
Yeah.
We made a
Yeah.
ton of money, whatever. And that's just like that doesn't even make sense.
Mhm.
Your castle's you're going to crumble if you do that. But if you are fitting in with yourself and you know who you are as God created you and what his purpose is for your life, then at that point when you go out, you're serving for the sake of serving. I always
Right.
say like as if if you can serve someone and they never even know that you're the person that served them, that's the ultimate, you
That's
know.
right.
So
You
when we
don't
do
get any
fundraising,
credit.
yeah,
Yeah.
when we do fundraisings for swims, like I love to be the sweat equity. I'll go out there because I love swimming now, and I love being in the water and I love pushing myself and I love training and I just I just love the people around it and meeting new people and sharing life experiences. But I love fundraising. And if I can if we can raise money, our team can raise money and give it to people and they get the help they need, but they never know where
Mhm.
that money came from. That is the biggest win I can ever get.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into that in a minute, how you use your swimming to do that.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that you said something really eye opening. And I just wanted to make sure that I heard it and captured it
Mhm.
correctly. You're talking about how we serve and that people will go out and, you use that serving as kind of like a band aid over the things that are really wrong in your own life. And it makes you feel good to help other people.
Yeah.
It really does. But at the end of the day, when you're done, you still have to go home. You still have to stop serving. You still have to address those issues that are going on. It sounds like you found, once you got comfortable with who you are and you found your purpose, then it became a lot easier and freeing to go ahead and serve others. And you also talk about embracing your unique ability and finding purpose. And in that Facebook post, you also talked about one needs to turn to their higher coach, and you give God the credit for that. What would you say to someone who either doesn't know how to find their unique ability or doesn't believe that God's pleased with them, and he doesn't think, they don't think he's going to answer them to help them embrace their unique ability? What would you say?
Oh, sure, sure. Well, I think we're so hardwired. Culturally, we're hardwired, and we've got first of all, you got to unplug. So if you're going through your normal routine every single day, like in the subconscious living, it's going to be very hard because honestly, you're going to find purpose in whatever marketing plan comes up online that kind of go, oh, that looks fun. Oh, that looks fun. Oh, that looks fun. But you said something earlier, like deep breathing, unplugging. I like to just sit with myself, sit out in nature. I like to go swim, whatever it may be, but just really unplug. Like get rid of the electronics, s- get rid of the instant messages, everything. Go for a walk, and just start, but doing it as a daily practice, so that you're creating that space so that you can actually hear a voice. And you know what? If you're not sure who God is or if there even is a God, just start talking. Hey, God, I don't even know if you exist, but if you do exist, I'm just going to have a conversation with you. Like when you're
Yeah.
getting to know someone, what do? You have a conversation. You're asking me questions, I'm answering, we're going back and forth. Same thing. At the end of that, you might go, there is no God. And I'm like, that's okay. If that's what you believe. I don't know how you could believe that. When
Yeah.
we're this standing on this ball, whirling through space that doesn't seem to have an end. I'm like, somebody had to create this. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think when you give yourself opportunity to actually hear, to be still, to unplug, and that's just a basically, if the entire culture is download more data, then do the opposite
Right.
and listen for the whisper. So,
Yeah.
like what I like to do every day is I actually, behind me on the left here is my little prayer nook, and I sit there and I read, I meditate, I listen to music, I read scripture, but also just like when I breathe, I've got a big glass whiteboard there. I just write down prayer requests, write down ideas, write down in a journal, and I just I listen, I hear, I think, I create, and those are all the things that I think
Mm.
is way more. That's where you start living and stop being entertained.
Hmm.
This thing
I
is
love
great.
that.
This thing is great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's so awesome for like communicating, but it's also really bad because you were plugged in, and people were watching people live their lives online instead of living our own life. I talked about this on a podcast last week. The Colosseum is alive and well. Give them entertainment and give them bread. And that's just we'll sedate them like that. That's what Caesar said.
Yeah.
Um, that's what we've got with TV shows, reality shows, apps,
Hmm.
sporting events, everything. And we've got people who are just watching life instead of living life.
I agree. What would you say before we move on to the swimming, because I want to get
Okay.
there? What would you say to those who are struggling to find their purpose in life? What can they do?
Um, unplug,
Unplug.
unplug, 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 unplug.
That's an easy unplug.
It's,
Unplug
it's
and
just
sit
like
quiet.
I don't know how else to say it. Unplug. Like if you watch, if you're on your phone 4 to 6 hours a day watching TV for weekends, whatever, um, where's the time for you to just be with you?
Right.
But I would say
Yeah.
unplug.
Yeah. Make the time. Make the time for you. You have to make yourself that important and put it above these things that you're watching. I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. All right.
respect yourself enough
Mhm.
to work on yourself and to be with yourself rather than just giving yourself to everyone else.
Yeah. Would you also, in addition to you just said respect yourself, would you also agree that it's a form of self-love to love yourself enough to turn off these things and really explore who you are and to find your North Star, to find that which you were created for? I mean, that ultimately I would think is one of the highest forms of self-care we can do for ourselves. Talk about what your greatest, highest purpose is and how that ties into swimming. What inspired you to take on the challenge of swimming the Kauai Channel?
So my purpose really is one, living a legacy every day. So what I mean by that is like I'm not just going to die and leave money. I want a few things. Like to point the way to Jesus, to help sober curious people, determine if they want to be sober. Like what does that look like? To help people understand you can have a life of sobriety and have an incredible life, you know, and you're probably going to function a lot better too. And serve others with my talents, which is now turning into fundraising. So sobriety, swimming, and serving, whatever order you want to put that in, is really the purpose. And that all is driven by every single day making sure that I'm developing myself spiritually, physically, relationally to drive the financial. Um, and the financial, I always believe, like you take care of people, then you'll be fine. You know. So what got me into swimming? I got back into swimming about 6 7 years ago. I had a really close friend. He's a brother to me now, and he he had found out about a swimming pass. He was doing triathlons. He's like, "Hey man, you need to go in a open water swim race if you don't want to do pool races." He's like, "There's one in 6 weeks. Why don't you train up a little bit?" I was like, I'll do some swimming," and it was like I could have done a half mile or something, a 1.2 mile, 2.4 mile, and I was like, "Man, I'm so slow. I'm fat. I'm overweight. Like I'm not anywhere near what I used to be when I was swimming." But mentally, I feel pretty strong. So I'll do the 2.4 mile swim. And it was funny. I was like, I come out, there's a picture of me, and I'm like cramping. But I finished and
Oh,
I won my age group, and I came like 7th overall or something. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't swum in years. I really enjoyed being open water. I did another one, same thing happened, and I was just like, I don't want to race other people. I'm like, let's see how far I can swim. So I started doing test swims. I did a 6 mile swim, then I did a 12-mile swim, and
Okay.
then I was spec'd to do a really big swim across Lake Michigan. COVID hit, my boat fell through, but I did a swim anyway, and I did like 28 miles that day. But got super sick because like I knew nothing about nutrition,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
what to eat, like wear earplugs in cold water because the water gets into your inner eardrum and makes you. I had no clue. I'm like out there with Ritz crackers and some water,
Oh my
Not,
gosh. Now
not.
did you have a team with you doing that? Like,
I had,
I'm
I
trying to
had,
picture you
yeah, yeah.
swimming
Oh,
like
it's
you're
funny.
all by you're not all by
No,
yourself out, 28 miles. I
I'm going up the
for
coast. I'm
us
going up and down the
novices
coast.
here.
I was going up and down the
Okay,
coast in Michigan. So my
gotcha.
bride Kelly, she's on the kayak with one of our daughters, Sophie, and so because the kayak even had a crack in it, so every 2 hours they had to pull over, empty it out of water, and
Oh my
then come
gosh.
back. And so we just swam. We started like 6 in the morning, swam all day. It was fine. It was great. Um, but just kind of like I just swam 28 miles in the last 6 miles. I puked the entire way, and I kept going. And I was like, I wonder how many miles the English Channel is. Like, this is how naive I was to the sport. And this was like 4 years ago. And I find out the English Channel is 20 miles. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So
You
I
just
talked to my,
swam 28.
yeah, so I
You
talked
just
to
did
Kelly, and I'm like,
28.
I think I'm going to do the English Channel. I mean, that's a big swim. So I signed up for the English Channel, and then they're like, yeah, your spot will be in 2.5 years. Because
Okay.
COVID and everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's cool. Well, in the meantime, I start getting into the open water swim community, and I'm doing races down in Charleston. Amazing woman, Kathleen Wilson. She's an open water swimmer, runs a race or has a race down in Charleston. She swam Sea of Galilee a couple of years ago. She's a believer.
Wow.
She's just an amazing person. But so I told her I was doing English Channel. She's like, "Oh, are you doing it at the Ocean 7?" I'm like, "Ocean's what?" So I start looking up all these swims, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's 6 more really cool swims out there." And
Right.
I started kind of putting this plan together. Well, maybe I'd like to do that one someday or that one. But it all kind of culminated. I did Lake Kiwi. Lake Kiwi.
Yeah,
It's
I know,
very
like
close
yeah,
to
like
New
who
York.
is yeah, it's about,
Yeah.
30 minutes or so from where I
Yeah.
am. Yeah.
So 2 summers ago, I did that from top to bottom. No one's ever done
Oh,
it.
wow.
22 miles.
Yeah.
Fantastic swim. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
beautiful area. I was up there a couple weeks ago hiking. It's just
yeah, yeah.
absolutely beautiful up there.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah,
Gorgeous.
yeah. But
Gorgeous
wait a
swim.
minute, I have to pause you a minute though. The
Yeah.
first time you were going along up in Lake Michigan, right? Was it along there you said?
Yeah.
And I heard you did I hear you correctly say you were swimming and like you were puking the whole time, but you
Oh,
still
it's
kept
fast.
going? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute,
6 miles.
wait. I want to capture that a minute because if somebody's swimming, right, and you're like you're puking along the way, what internally drove you to continue?
You know, I went through a divorce. I've been bankrupt. I've had
Yeah.
dropping my kids off after a visitation weekend is the most painful thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm.
There's
Mhm.
nothing has even come close to the pain that I've felt when
I'm
dropping
divorced
them
as
off.
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's there's a lot of
yeah.
pain in there.
There is so much pain. And I didn't, and then fast forward, I didn't even know about grief as much until my really close friend, my sister, passed of ALS last year, and then my dad passed like 2 months later.
Mm.
And it
Mhm.
was like grief is the most painful thing, second most painful thing I've ever done, other than dropping
Mhm.
my kids off after visitation. And
Yeah.
so, like, I started thinking, I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to do these swims, like Kiwi, I was struggling, but I was doing it for cancer awareness. And I was like, these people didn't choose to have cancer and they're fighting for life. I'm choosing to do this. I need to finish.
Mm.
I need to finish this. And I just started getting this mentality of like, every time I go swim or I go raise money, like my pain does not compare to the pain these people are in that we're raising money for.
Mm.
So you know what? Go into the pain cave, deal with it, get through it, and pray your way through it. Get through whatever you got to do to get through it. Prayers, affirmations from the team. You know, there's all different. I call them keys to get through out the pain cave.
Mm-hmm.
It's the different doors, and that's what I started putting together in life. Is like, if I've done this really hard thing, I could do this really hard thing. Well, but instead, a lot of times we go, I've done this hard thing, and now I want to sit in comfort.
What did you do in those moments where you had guilt and shame for, the certain things that have happened in your life? What are some things that you did to let go of that, to be comfortable with who you are so that you didn't carry around that baggage?
Yeah, I actually went into some pretty deep coaching and counseling. I sought help. You know, I realized that um, although I had verbalized it and prayed about it and given it up, like there was another step to it. It was the step of sharing it with other men and sharing it so that my story could help them and their story could help me.
Mhm.
And knowing that we're not alone. We're all messed up in some way. Well, everyone's got, no one has any problems until you go through the front door, and then and then you can see them all behind the front door. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really just being willing to be vulnerable. Once there's this, you got to be a macho man or whatever, a real man, just store everything in and don't talk about things and just get through it. Yeah, that's great until your toxicity blasts all over everybody else because you've not dealt with anything, or you're just working all the time for achievement and it's all driven by guilt and shame, you know,
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
so that all you care about is the next deal or the next bag of money
Yeah.
or the next um, opportunity, and in the wake of you is your health and your relationships and your connections, just
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you found healing in vulnerability when you reached out to others.
sure, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you sit here in this podcast and just, I'll share my story with anyone now. I don't care, you know. But could I have done that 10 years ago? No, I don't even know I could have done that 6 years ago.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's a process. Everything's a process. So like
Yeah.
after Laura, passed of ALS, my dad passed. I was sitting on the beach up in Michigan again last summer, and I'd been doing some swims. Didn't have the English Channel till 2024, till next summer. And I just looked at Kelly and I went, I got to book a swim for next year. And she goes, oh, okay, which one? I'm like, I'm going to go up to the house. I'm going to go book Hawaii. And she's like, why Hawaii? I'm like, it's the longest one. It's the biggest one. And
Mhm.
I want to go back to Hawaii with you, just the two of us. And I just want to swim. And I'm not quite ready for cold water. So I'd rather be at home. And I just can't wait till 2024 to do English Channel. So that's what I did. I went and I booked it. I got the captain and booked it, and then the conversations after summer started with Miracle Hill, like, hey, how can we fundraise? What are
Mhm.
some needs? And mental health counseling for foster children came up. Long term sober living communities came up. But we
Yeah.
really felt led in January. We really felt led there was going to be mental health counseling for foster children, like paying the bills, helping them get counseling they need. Um, and that was great. We raised money for that. But that swim, that swim taught me more. Like people say, you go through these crucible moments like that to find out who you are. And I say when you go through those moments or something hard, it actually confirms who you are. Not you don't
Yeah.
find out who you are; it confirms who you are to that point. And just the faith stories inside of it were unbelievable. But
Yeah, let's dig into those
you
because
want
I
to
know
think
you're not gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. You were stung by a Portuguese man of war. You
7 times?
accidentally ran 7 times. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And you accidentally ran into like the kayak that's there has this what do they call it? Shark, like a
it's a
shark
shark shield. Yep,
yeah,
shark shield.
shark shield. You accidentally swam into that. I can't imagine the amount of pain any of those would have brought you. You kept swimming, so you talked about those crucible moments. Capture that and talk about that, please.
Yeah, everything had kind of gone like there was so many. I can't even. We'd have to do a whole nother podcast to just talk about the week of the swim. The day of the swim, we had flown over to Molokai, and we're sitting on Molokai. We had a local guy. It was Easter Sunday. We had a local guy pick us up, take us out there, and our boat captain's coming across from the other side with the kayakers, and it was rough. Like it was rough, and they're like, we don't know. And there's going to be more comes out about that. We actually have a documentary coming out in a couple months about that swim, so I'm not going to give it all away. But they were a little bit nervous. They were a little bit nervous about going, and I was like, look, I've been sitting underneath this palm tree all day. The wind's going straight from Molokai to Oahu. I was like, I'll give it a shot. And the captain's like, okay, if you want to go, we go. I was like, if you let me go, I'll go. And it was that step of faith that I was like, okay, Lord, I'm here. I'll go. I'll trust you. Very quickly, I knew I was in bad shape. I started puking at an hour and a half in. And
Ugh.
you got to remember, it's pitch dark. We started at 6 o'clock at night on Easter Sunday. So by
Why do
7:15,
you why at night? Why at night? Why did you not swim during the day when it was bright?
so dehydration, sun, and marine life. We want to,
Oh.
yeah, it's like we don't want as much marine activity, you know, um, going through it. Plus, if they found like starting at that time, you're more chance of ending the swim in the daylight. Trying to end the swim at night on the other side is it's almost impossible. It's really, really hard. So that's like the best time to start. But yeah, we got out into the channel and an hour and a half in, I just projectile vomit on my nose, every right down my
Ugh.
body. No one can tell. And immediately the fear kicks in. Oh, I just chummed the water. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. Keep swimming.
Mm.
Oh wait a minute. I've only been not even swimming for 2 hours and puking. I'm not going to tell anyone. Keep swimming. Then I got hit by the shark shield. I screamed, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, nothing I can do. Keep swimming." Then I get stung by a Portuguese man. What nothing I can do. Keep swimming. About four
Right,
hours in,
because the rules say you're not allowed to touch anybody and they're not allowed to touch you. Is
no,
that correct?
can't touch the
Yeah.
boat. I don't have a
Can't
wetsuit
touch
on,
the boat.
cap, goggles, swimsuit. Can't touch the boat. Can't hold on to anything. Yeah, so my nutrition plan that I had all in a beautiful laminated spreadsheet out the window. Like I'm calling out my next feedings as I'm taking a feeding. And basically they've got a bottle. We've got a carabiner bottle on a 50-foot line that they swing out into the water, and I swim
Mhm.
into the line with my arm, and when I hit it, I'm like, oh, feeding time, and I pull it in, and I take a feeding.
Wow. Is it liquid? Obviously liquid
Yeah,
then.
well, it was liquids further on into the swims after I got my peanut butter and jelly, because that settled
All
my
right, all
stomach.
right. Now you're gonna have to explain how do you eat peanut butter and jelly while you're swimming at the same time at night across the channel, please. I know I
Yeah,
can't be the only
it's
one
it's not the easiest
wondering how
thing.
you do that.
And I had to screw the top off to be able to get it out. But yeah, so we're in 4 to 8 foot swells. Like we're going up and down. There's points where I can't see the boat, they can't see me. But I'm treading water and I'm just jamming this thing in my mouth and choking it down because I'm like, I just had this prayer. Like I'd honestly just had this prayer because I was like, at 4 hours, I was about to quit. And when I say I was about to quit, I was like, I'm not quitting. I just don't know how I keep going. And
Mm.
the kayaker said, he's like, Steve, it's called a challenge for a reason. That's why so few people have finished this one. And I was like, Okay, well, I'm just going to go pray about it and I'll keep swimming. And I was like, hey, Lord, I asked in Jesus' name for you to calm the oceans. And how I remember is another big wave hit me at that point. That might be dramatic. I might be making that up. But that's how I remember it. I just plain as day, Jesus just said, I never said I calm the oceans. I said I calm you in the ocean. And I was like, I popped my head up and I was like, Miles, get the peanut butter and jelly. We're going to finish this. I've got no problems. He's like, what? I was like, tell him to get a peanut butter and jelly. We are good to go. And I got to that feeding. I'm treading water. I jammed the peanut butter and jelly in my mouth. I've actually got on film me asking for the peanut butter and jelly. And I just had this calm over me, like this peace. And that I'd want to tell you that it got easier from then on. It did. I got stung more. After that, I could only drink water. And the only thing that sounded good to me was 2 Chips Ahoy cookies every time. Literally, I would screw the top off. Salt water would kind of go into my thing. I'd be getting my cookies out. I'd have salt water,
Salty
Chips Ahoy
cookies.
cookies. But I was boiled down to that part of the process where it was like, just keep putting one hand in front of the other. These foster children didn't ask to be foster children. I asked to be in this position. So I'm getting what I asked for, Yeah. And it just became clear and more clear. It just kept going. One of my kayakers gets sick. We have to get him out. He has to get out for like 5 hours. He's only supposed to be out for 2 hours. So the other kayaker's with me for 5.5 hours. And he's cramping up because they are just, it's so windy out there, so big, 21 knot winds, 4 to 8 foot swells. He's getting blown around, trying to stay next to me and guide me. And we just kept going. Every time I was like, every time we stopped for a feeding, I'd be like, ready to go back to work? Yep, ready. Okay, let's go. And we kept moving forward. And eventually, you're like, oh, there's land. But there's 2 things I want to talk about. In the midst of that pain, in the midst of that pain cave, I not only found peace, but I got to see bioluminescence, pulling bioluminescence through the water like tracers, bright green little tracers going through the water. Unbelievable. Most incredible thing I've ever seen. And then before
Explain that. Like, what do you mean by that? I've never heard of that before.
They're like little things in the water. They're bright green. And they're just like when you pull through them, it's like you get tracers with your hands.
Wow.
That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But there's also no light pollution in the middle of the channel. When I say I saw trillions of stars, I asked 3 days after the swim if I had been hallucinating. And they're all like, no, we've never seen anything like it. There were so many stars because the moon hadn't come out yet. And there was no clouds. And we're just in this rough, primal situation, just going, wow, it's a dome of stars around us. And so I think the lesson that I really got there is no matter how dark it gets, there's always going to be light. Always. You can't drown out the light. And if you keep that mentality inside of your heart, whether it's in business, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in your physical self, like just keep looking for the light, looking for the truth, keep moving forward. You can have an incredible life,
Keep your eye on the light, even when it's dark. Even when there's dark, there's always a pinpoint of hope. There's a pinpoint of light somewhere.
That's right.
I love that you captured that. Talk about what was going through your mind when you saw land, you approached it, and then when you hit that beach, what were you thinking?
Okay. When I saw land, the sun was just starting to rise. And I was like, it's really wavy out here. Like, my gosh. I guess I didn't really quite realize as dark as it was. But as I got closer to land, I just remember I was started thinking about Laura and my dad, and I really started choking up. And I was like, oh man, they're not here. They're not here to be with me for this, you know? Two of my biggest supporters in life who like just when I was down at the rock bottom were there and loved me before rock bottom, during rock bottom, after rock bottom, just loved me. And and you know, Laura had ALS and fought for every breath. My dad's had the Widowmaker back in 2010 and lived, you know, and I'm just like, I just went through this channel. I'm fighting through this channel, and they're not here to celebrate it. And I breathe, and I happen to be breathing to the left, and boom, there's a double rainbow.
Mm.
I mean, I can't make it up. I can't make it up. And where people see coincidence, I see providence. And it was just so exciting. It was like, wow, this is amazing. So then I'm like, okay, it's getting clearer. I can see the bottom. And I'm still like a mile, 2 miles out from shore. And I'm starting to see bottom. And I'm like, oh man, Lord, thank you so much. We're getting close. Like, I'm starting to get excited. I'm like, hey man, we're going to finish this thing. And then
Did you start swimming faster?
No. The fear stick kicks in again. So I'm like, I started thinking, what? How do I not finish this? And the only thing I could come up with was, oh, a shark could take me down right now. And I'm like, okay, let's just move that one to the side and not think about that any longer. You know, but it's real. In the moment, you're exhausted, you're tired, your shoulder hurts, you're bloodied on the left shoulder because your face is rubbed the skin off. You know, I mean, I've been eating 2 Chips Ahoy cookies every half hour for 8 hours. I'm depleted. I'm salt mouth, everything. And I'm like, yeah, no, I think it's just a shark. A shark takes me down. I'm done. Well, can't really do anything about that. Can't control that. So I'm just going to keep going. And, you know, with two hours to go, Jake got in the other kayaker. He'd been asleep for 5.5 hours. And he's like, I can't believe you're still going. I was like, man, you look so much better. You're looking good. He's like, I'm feeling good. He's like, I can't believe you're still going. I was like, okay, well, I'm still going.
Still going?
Here's the deal. You ready to finish this? He said, yeah, I'm ready. I said, okay, you lead me and you do a great job and I will follow you. And he goes, okay. And man, we just got after it. And we get closer to land and Miles jumped in. He put fins on and he jumped in and he was one of the kayakers and swam next to me. And I noticed him trying to get a little faster to get ahead of me. And I'm like, I can't let you do that. so I got faster. And he's like, hey, you got really fast there at the end. I was like, yeah, you kept getting in front of me. I didn't want that.
Sounds like you like a challenge.
Yeah, a little bit. But I got to the land and I got onto the beach and I seen a lot of people fall over and I was exhausted. People were exhausted. I get it. But I was like, you know, I want to finish the race strong. Whatever I do, and I want to give glory to God. And so when I got that beach, went running up the beach and turned in one way, you know, and it was just like
I saw that. I actually saw that. I watched it was on the news. I found the news clip.
Yeah.
And what I thought was most amazing was what you just described. I saw it showed you coming out of the water and you ran up onto the beach and you're right, you didn't fall. And I thought that was, that was after swimming for 12 hours and 28 miles to stand there at the end. I think that was just an incredible feat. Did you feel like your dad and Laura were there when you hit the shore?
So couple things there. I pre-programmed that 3 months ahead of time. I pre-programmed that I was going to run that beach, and I visualized running that beach.
Visualization, yeah. We talk a lot about that.
A lot of it. Like, so when it came, I didn't even have to think about it. I just knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So then here comes Courtney down the beach, and this is Laura's daughter, who got stationed out. Her husband got stationed in Oahu a year and a half ago. So there's Courtney. Laura couldn't be there, but Courtney was there. That was pretty cool. And then a gentleman, Bruce, showed up, and I met Bruce on Monday in a Kaibo place, and I overheard him watching this YouTube video about a Christian surfer, and I was like, "Oh, what's that about?" And he's like, "Hey," he comes over and sits with me, and he's like, "This guy was the lifeguard on North Shore 3 months ago, when I was walking with my granddaughter and had a massive heart attack.
Mm.
He prayed over me, laid hands on me. I got to the hospital, and they did I think a valve replacement or what. They did some pretty serious stuff." And he's like, "I'm here." So this guy shows up. You think that's a coincidence? Guy with heart failure and all that. And my dad had it, like the
Yeah.
two people that
No,
show up. And
nothing's a coincidence.
no, it's Providence. And I was just like, in that moment, I was so grateful to basically a stranger who I had prayed with on Monday, wanting to just be there with me on the next
Mm.
Monday morning, literally a week later, you know. So
Wow.
it
What a
was it was
great
it
story.
was incredible. But they tried to convince me to just get in the car to go back to the harbor, and I guess there was a big problem with that. I guess they didn't understand. Number one, that Kelly, my bride, is on the boat. I've got to go see her. And number two, there is no way I'm not swimming back out to the boat. Like, there's just no way. And so we got back in the water and swam back out, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'd rather be in the water." So at Sandy
Yeah.
Beach, we went back out. It was great.
Wow. Wow. That's an incredible story. What is something that you thought would be difficult about swimming the channel and wound up wasn't? And what was something that you thought would be easy and turned out to be really challenging for you?
Oh, it was something I thought was going to be easy. I think I underestimated the what did I guess I underestimated the just the power of the water.
Mm.
There were sometimes I would stroke, and it would almost like I'd body surf for 2 feet, but then the next wave would come because of the way they were going and just push me under 2 feet. I mean,
Mm.
this is such big water, but I think I also underestimate the beauty of it. Like there's something like you're standing on a beach in Molokai. There's no boats, no one else, nothing. Your kayakers here, your boats here, it's just you. And you head out, and we've got drone footage of us heading out. And you're just heading out into the ocean. You can't see along with it. So I underestimated the beauty of it. I really did.
Mm.
But the hard, what I knew I was going to get jellyfish sting. Like I knew I would get stung. I just did.
Mm.
What I didn't realize was, again, I'd gone through so many harder things in life that when I got them, I was like, I can actually handle this.
Mm.
I can deal with this pain. It's annoying. It doesn't feel good, but you know what? It distracted me for a while, and it allowed me to keep doing my job and keep doing what I needed to do to keep moving forward. And I think
Mm.
like so often we try and shy away from pain, but pain can actually propel us. You know, when you get comfortable getting uncomfortable, right? How many
Mhm.
times have you heard that?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
lovely
yeah.
word of wisdom, but it's so true. Like,
That's
you
where the
deal.
growth comes. Don't you do you feel like the growth
Yeah,
comes in those
yeah,
moments where you have those lowest not because when you're low, it's generally a moment of pain of some
mhm.
kind, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain or a
Right,
combination
right,
of
right,
both.
right.
That's where our
Yes.
lowest points are, but when we're down there, that's where the opportunity for growth is the greatest. And
Yeah,
I hear
sure.
that threaded throughout your story, and I know it's inspiring me to listen to. I'm sure others who are listening, anybody who listens is definitely inspired by that. I know I am. Um, Steve, I could talk for like another hour, but
Yeah.
I want to be mindful of your time, and you are always welcome. Of course, welcome back on my podcast.
Oh, that would be
As
amazing. Yeah.
we, oh yeah, as we wrap up, um, And this might extend it a couple of minute question, but I always love to ask this question. What's one topic or question you wish I would have asked, and how would you have answered that question or expanded on the topic?
So a question I get asked a lot is what was the hardest part of when you do a large open water ultra swim?
Mhm.
Like, what was the hardest part of the Hawaii swim? That's like the basic first question. And what I always say is the hardest part of the swim, you would think it would be drowning out the voices of other people. It's not. It's
Mm.
drowning out your own voice. It's being absolutely sure of who you are and where you're going, so that when you have to get up in the morning and get out of bed while your spouse is nice and cozy and warm, and you're about to go train again, and you train twice a day, sometimes 3 a day, 7 days a week, when people are talking about
Mhm.
recovery days, and I'm like, I haven't had a
Mhm.
recovery day in 5 months. I don't know what this recovery day is you speak of. But those are hard. The process is hard, but the process will get you the result. And it's
Right.
not linear. It is not linear. I have trained with more sinus infections than I care to admit. I've, you know, I've got this written rule too. Like, after I do a swim, it's not I just go sleep and take care of myself. No, no, no. Now I'm going to do. Hey, Cal, what do you want to do? Hey, family, what do you want to do? How
Mhm.
how do I invest back into the people that love and support me, not just go crash? So I've got to keep going. Like
Mhm.
the swim's over. Oh, it just gets relaxed. No, 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 no. Now I've got to lean in and find that next gear to go take care of the people that take care of me.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's great.
so
Yeah, well, that goes
yeah,
in with your philosophy, like what your kind of like your philosophy is, where you're taking care of the spiritual, you're taking care of yourself, and you're taking your care of your family and
yeah,
relational as well. You
yeah.
don't just go back into your shell and, kind of wear on your sleeve, look what I just did, so I'm going to go ignore everybody else. I think
Right,
that's just a beautiful picture on how you care. You do take care of yourself, and I hear that in there, but you don't do it at the expense of others. And I think that's
right.
definitely an art form as well. Hey, we didn't get to what's the MOBY for?
Oh, MOBY, yeah. So we were coming up with grandparent names because baby Eden was born in March,
Oh,
and she's so sweet. But our first round of names didn't really click. They weren't clicking. Wasn't working out, and so it's like before the Hawaii swim, I'm like, well, just call me Chum, because I'm starting to get ticked off. Like, I just want a name picked. I don't, and nobody liked Chum. And I was like, well, what about Bait? Can it be called Bait? And they're like, no, you can't be called Bait. Uh, but
you mean for a grandpa name, right? You didn't want
yeah,
Papa for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
grandpa, or
You totally put me around. I didn't want to be
okay,
grandpa, and at
gotcha.
one point I was going to be Cap for captain, and I didn't really like that. Um, but then the girls were just like, "Well, Mom's going to be Mamie, and we think you should be Moby." After the whale, and I'm like, "Well, hopefully I'm a little skinnier, but uh, just kind of like Moby is kind of like a nice jacket. Just kind of, I put it on and I just went, I
I
really,
like it.
I really like the Moby chapter. And that's where I'm moving into now. Everything you see is Steve Moby Leitch. And it's really because, like, our family is so beautiful. It's blended, it's hard, it's not perfect, it's imperfect. We don't all get along, it doesn't all work out, we don't see each other all the time. But you know what? There's a love and care for each other. And that little grandbaby is just a reminder of to live your life every single day. Don't live somebody else's life. Don't watch somebody else's life. Live your life. Love God, love others, and just go get after it. And that's the Moby. That's the Moby life.
I love it. And you know what? I think you answered my last question. And it's as we close, what's one small step someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Yeah, get up tomorrow morning when you say you're going to get up. Don't hit snooze. It's like, like to start with one thing. If you say you're going to get up at 5, get up at 5. Say you're going to get up at 7, get up at 7. Do that and start doing little things like that. Or if you got any questions, reach out to me. I coach people all the time on how to just create better habits that work for their life. And I don't create the habits. I work with you to create your habits, what you want for your life. Because we don't all need to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Okay. But we do all get up when we say we're going to get up.
Right. Being real to ourselves, keeping promises to ourselves. It's probably one of the worst. It's probably one of the worst things we can do, to make a promise to ourselves and then break a promise to ourselves.
Right.
So we can grow as a person. When we say
Right.
we're going to do something, we go ahead and do that thing. And then it just makes us feel so much better on the inside too. I mean, think
It's
about
that
it,
first little win.
Yeah. You said you're going to
Yeah.
go do something, then you go do it. Steve, thank you. I'm going to put you sent me your contact information. I'm going to put that in the show notes. But for those that are listening, you want to just say like 1 or 2 ways people can find you real quick.
Yeah, we've got the YouTube channel. We've just got our little trailer for the documentary up there. It's really cool. Please pass it around. We threw together a website, SteveMobyLeitch.com. We've got my Facebook page, and our swimming Facebook page is coming along. We've got a lot of stuff coming out, and it's really, we want to be the sweat equity. We want to create great content around swimming and meeting people and doing these swims to raise money for others. We want to make a difference in the upstate of South Carolina, and we need your help. But also, if there's anything that we can help you with, let us know. You want to do an endurance race? Let me know. You want to create new habits? Let me know. You want to talk about quitting drinking? We can talk about it. We can head you in the right direction. But the information will be up there.
Perfect.
And feel free to reach out.
And people will be able to, if they want to donate to your next swim, that information will be there too.
That's
they
not
can
there
help
yet.
support.
That will be coming.
Okay.
That will be
Perfect. Well, Steve, thank you again for your time. This has been amazing. I enjoyed our conversation very much so.
Yes. I cannot thank you enough. I really appreciate you just having me and listening to me. You ask great questions. I know I rattle on a little bit, but thank you so much.
You're fine. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.